Okay. I gave this presentation about 2.5 years ago, my very first one. But we've got a lot of new faces, a lot of new people. So if you have seen this, well, you're going to know all the answers. But it'd be a good refresher. And Paul, if you want to hand these out. And while he's doing that, let me just tell you a little bit about my business. I started off in the insurance business working for Farmers Insurance. And after a year, I felt too confined that I couldn't offer a lot of times what my clients wanted. I had to force them into what was offered by one company. So I became a broker, and I work with about 15 different carriers now, so I can do a better fit. So what I'm going to talk about today is personal liability, personal injury liability. Because I'm sure everybody has auto insurance. And has anybody actually taken the time to get their policy and go through it and read it, understand it? Very few of you. And I was just as guilty before I got into this business. I saw those numbers, but they didn't fully make sense to me. I had an idea, but sometimes that idea was wrong. So, one of the first things you see on there, it'll be something like this for personal injury liability. And can anybody tell me what that means?
100, 300, 100.
Yes.
500. 500.
Okay. So, what's those numbers mean?
100 each incident, 300 maximum, and I don't know what the last one is.
Okay, close. Okay, what the first number here on liability talks about is that if you have this type of coverage, that if you have an at-fault accident, or a driver of your vehicle that you've given permission to drive is at fault, then for the injuries caused by you or that driver to the other occupants in the other cars, they'll pay up to $100,000 per person for any kind of injury or suit. $300,000 is the maximum that would be paid per accident. And then the last number is the property damage. It would pay up to $100,000 for any property damage caused to the other vehicles. Okay? So,
I'll hold it.
okay.
Awesome.
What was the first 100?
First one here is per person, per accident, and this is property damage. Okay? Now, let me ask, is coverage for personal injury liability required by the state of Colorado?
Yes, I think it's only 25,000, if I remember correctly.
It is, and it is 25, 50, 15. That is the minimum that is required by law in Colorado. Which is better? Well, we're going to cover that to find out which is better. Okay? The uninsured motorist or underinsured motorist that you get coverage on usually will follow these same numbers. So what you have for personal injury liability will also be the uninsured, underinsured motorist, which covers you and the occupants in your vehicle. Okay? So everybody's got one of these now, I think. And so we're going to kind of fill this out together. So let's say that you do have, and we're going to forget about property damage right now. We're just going to look at the liabilities. So you have $25,000 per person, $50,000 per accident, state minimum. Okay? And let's say that you have 3 people that are injured in the other vehicles, either injured or they died. So for the person number 1, their claim is for $50,000. So how much of your insurance is going to cover that $50,000?
Yeah.
$25,000 per person. Okay, so how much is not covered?
25.
The other half, 25,000. Okay? So then the second person, they claim that it's $200,000 of injury. And so how much is covered for that second person?
25.
25,000 per person, right? And then how much is not covered then? By injury? $175,000. The third person has some permanent injuries, off of work for a year. They claim $500,000 damage. So how much of that then, as a third person, is going to be covered?
Nothing.
Nothing. Because now you have met the $50,000
That's right.
per accident.
So how do you decide who's 1, 2, or 3?
What's that?
How do you decide who's 1, 2, and 3?
Well, it'd be as the claims come in.
Is that right?
Okay, yeah. Yeah. But nonetheless, you're going to come up with the same figures at the end. Okay, what's
You're still liable for it.
Yeah,
It's not that it doesn't get paid, it's just you have to pay it.
Yeah.
Rather than the insurance company, so,
Which means you get to sit down with me.
yes. So nothing is covered there, so what's not covered is $500,000. So if this accident happened to you with these kind of coverages, what is your out-of-pocket expense you're going to be doing?
7,000 total?
700,000.
$700,000. That's all right. We got that in the checkbook. We can just write a check out and pay that, right?
Or you can make Keith 25,000.
Oh, yeah. And Keith can help you out. Okay, let's say now that you got one step up. You had 50,000, 100,000. 50,000 per person, 100,000 per accident. So under that first person, how much is covered?
All of it.
All of it.
$50,000 per person. How much is on you?
None.
Nothing. Zero. So that person's fully covered. Second person, they claim 200,000. How much is covered?
25.
50.
50.
50, yeah.
Because it's still 50,000 per person, up to 100,000 for the accident.
Oh, up to 100, okay.
Okay? So now you've met $100,000, and then the remainder of 150,000 is not covered. The third person for $500,000, how much is covered?
Zero.
Zero. Remaining $500,000 up to you. So then how much is your out-of-pocket expenses in this case?
Only 650.
$650,000.
Better than 700.
Yeah, that's better than $700,000, that's right. And you're still,
Not only good with computers, but good with math.
You like numbers.
he's doing a lot of those ones and zeros.
You like, that's pretty much where it comes from.
650 is better.
Okay, third instance is $300,000. So in the first person with the 300, how much is covered by that?
All of it.
All of it, $50,000. Nothing out of your pocket. The second person, how much?
All of
100.
No.
50.
No,
100.
50.
50, because that first person.
100 per person.
100,000 per person.
it. Yeah,
Okay,
so it's all covered.
so it's $100,000 covered, $100,000 not covered. And then the last person,
50.
100,000.
Oh, sorry. 100.
To make up to $300,000, not to go over $100,000, right?
Be 150.
So
150, right?
Because you're limited to 100 per person.
it would be, $100,000 because it won't pay more than per person,
Oh.
okay? So you're still under the per accident, but the per person is what is going to guide that one. So that gives you $400,000 that you're responsible for. So a total of out-of-pocket expense,
500.
$500,000. $500,000. Okay?
Dave, you're done 10 minutes.
Okay.
Get us to the punchline, what the difference in the premiums are for these.
Okay, so if you had 500, the first person's fully covered, second person's fully covered, the third person is covered $250,000, you have $250,000 out of your pocket. Okay?
Lesson learned, only hit two
No.
people instead of three. Right?
In an instance like that where you have these big numbers, you know, there's a thing called umbrella, that if you have an umbrella, that would take the excess up to $1 million.
I was sued and I have an umbrella policy with Dave. It's under $200 a year and it's worth it. Highly recommend that.
That's where you're going, isn't it? What the small difference is between premiums on these coverages?
Well, I try to guide people as this is a minimum. Okay. I try to get them to go 250, 500, or 500, 500. Especially if you have a lot to lose. Now, if you're just a young person, just starting out, you're 18 years old, you really can't afford much, maybe it
Is
is.
it more cost effective to do 103-1 with an umbrella, $1 million umbrella policy?
Most umbrella policies, you have to have this as a minimum.
Right.
Depending upon the carrier. Some carriers require you 250, 500 before they give you the umbrella.
And your umbrella premium actually goes down the
Yeah,
higher this coverage is.
that's exactly right.
So it doesn't stay the same.
Yeah.